What is up, everyone? My name is Tyler. You are watching Mom's Basement MMA. And chances are, if you are an MMA fighter in California, my next guest is somebody you look forward to talking to. Because if you're talking to this guy after a fight, it means you won. It means you had a good night in the office. Joining me today from California is an MMA reporter, analyst, and commentator. His name's Michael Hernandez. Michael, welcome to the program. I appreciate the time. It's Memorial Day. I know it's a holiday weekend, but you're taking the time for me just after working a fight this weekend. So I really appreciate it, man.
Hey, it's an absolute honor. Thank you so much, Tyler. Everyone at Mom's Basement, shout out my boys Pat and Dylan as well. It's been a busy weekend, but I love busy. I tell everyone all the time I'd rather be busy than not have anything to do at all. So these past 2 weekends, actually, man, had back-to-back fight nights. Had A1 Combat fight night at the Tech last week, then had 559 fights in A1 Combat this week. So it's been a lot of work, man, but the best thing I can say is it builds a lot of fruitful relationships in the business, and I think me and you can both elaborate on it for hours and hours about how much it means to build these connections with these guys, because at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of people may forget, these people are people just like us, so they want to be talked to, and they want their human interaction levels to kind of be reached too, so it's cool when I get to speak to a lot of these people that I've seen in the fight game that have almost became like family to me now, especially now within the media sphere, and obviously within a couple organizations, some people have grown pretty close to me. So I always look at fight weekends as like a big family reunion with a couple of new components added, and it's always a great time, man. So I'm happy to be speaking with you, and I'm just ready for this upcoming summer of fights, because this is going to be a fun one.
Yes, sir. It absolutely will. Well, Michael, one of the things I would say about you is you're a brilliant mind. You put out engaging content that I look forward to watching. You do phenomenal work on the mic. But, from humble beginnings, right? Like we all have wild stories about how we got into this space. And I'm kind of like curious what your story is. Like, what compelled you to get into this line of work? Because I feel like some people, like, they were born to do this. And then there are other people that were just the sport found them and they just kind of found themselves in this sort of line of work. So what's the story with you? How did you get into all this?
Yeah, man. I always get asked that. I feel like this is like like if I had an MLH Media FAQ, it's definitely an at an event thing. Like people always ask me, like parents, whoever, and the story is kind of stayed the same over time, man. My family was always really into fighting growing up. I come from, if you guys don't recognize, Viva la Raza, baby. You know what I'm saying? So I grew up in a Mexican family household, man. Everybody that grew up around me, they was Mexican. So 90% Mexicans over there where I'm from in Dinuba. It was just heavily populated over there, man. It was a lot of people that enjoyed fighting, that really just loved the art of fighting, even if it was in the streets, wherever. They loved fighting, man. And I was just around it, but I tried to stay away from it, try to stay out of trouble. I really wanted to. My mom didn't get to go to a she had me at 21 years old. So like how you said, humble beginnings, man, like I really wanted to go to school for her. I really wanted to go to school for my family. So I told them all like that was my main priority. And I don't know, I had some things happen in my life and some priorities kind of changed around. And my brother, he was starting to get interested in MMA. He was starting to train jiu-jitsu, and he was like, hey, let's go to these 559 fights over here at the Visalia ballpark. It was like 20 minutes away from me, and I was kind of in a rut at the time. I was going through some stuff. I mean, wow. Sorry, it's getting a little emotional. So my buddy that had passed away, the reason why I kind of got into that event, his birthday is today. So today would have been his 25th birthday. And yeah, it was a little bit challenging, man. I ain't gonna lie, getting out there and being that guy, you know what I'm saying, trying to get myself back up to the type of person I was. But I don't know, MMA made me feel comfortable. It made me feel like I could get back to that, and that was a feeling I hadn't had for quite a while. And it was just really cool to see the environment and to see so much untapped potential, because I was there at the fights and I was like, why is no one recording this? Why is no one doing this? Why is no one like, this is an electric environment right now? And I don't know, I seen that and I seen an opportunity. And so I was with a junior college at the time. I wasn't at Cal Poly. I was taking a little break. So I decided to write an article for them. And Jeremy Luchow from 559 Fights, he luckily seen it. He said, hey, man, he got into contact with the guy that was doing media at the time, said to invite me out to the fights. I went out to the fights, and from there, the rest, I guess you could say, is history. I started off helping them out doing like social media stuff with I didn't even used to have a post-fight interview set up, man. I used to walk out of the cage and just ask them a couple things that were on their mind after their wins. And now, man, they have a whole setup, and they have a whole setup in the back. You know, we have my TV 53 that comes in and helps us produce it here and there. It's been a journey, man. So I'm just I biggest thing I could say is I'm thankful for it all, because I never would have expected to even be doing post fight interviews. Like, that was something that was completely out of the ballpark a couple of years ago now, and it's kind of evolved into its own thing. So I guess that's a short brand of it. My brother wanted to go into fighting, and I went with him to a fight, and I seen it, and now he's fighting. I'm doing MMA, so it's a pretty cool journey that me and him have both been on.
That's really cool. And to put it into context for people who don't know, for people who are outside of California, 559 Fights is somewhat of, I would classify it as like a developmental organization, a lot of amateur fights, a lot of like debuting pros that are on these cards, some of the best talent at the amateur level. And then like, you know, one less than 3 fights, I would say, like your real notable guys that are in California. That's what I would kind of consider that promotion being. And Michael, I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit, when you're covering a 559 fight with a lot of like amateurs or newer fighters that you may not have heard for, or you may not have heard of, is it a lot more difficult to like come up with your questions? Is it a lot more difficult to like figure out like what those engaging stories are when you're talking about brand new fighters that a lot of people outside of their gyms may not know about?
That's actually the first time I've ever got that question. No, actually, I would say it's not. I kind of like when guys don't have a whole lot of background, because then I get to ask them the off the wall questions and really get to it really harnesses my skills as an interviewer.
Mhm.
That's the way I look at it. So, for example, I talk to guys that haven't fought in 8 years sometimes. You know, there's this amateur MMA. So for 559 fights, it's all amateur fights, and it's all, there is no like pro fights or anything. There's some guys a little bit more amateur experience, but like how you said, some guys, they're 0-0. You know, they ain't never fought a day in their life. They don't have nothing on them on their camo website, nothing on their Tapology. So I go on Instagram, man. I'm like the premium Instagram stalker. Like, if I'm so lucky that the TikTok features on Instagram where you can show like who's been searching who, because I would probably be popping up in so many fighter searches. It would be really bad. But I look through their Instagrams, find out what they got going on, if they got a business going on, if they got, you know, maybe everybody has a story. And that's the biggest thing that I've really wanted to preach with this MMA. With this MMA media journey, and with my goal in this is to show that these guys aren't just fighters. These women aren't just fighters. They're human beings, and there's some pretty awesome ones out there. Like, I mean, you got guys that are doing home services and then going and fighting. Like, that's absolutely wild to me. I don't know, like the fact that somebody can do both of those things at the same time and keep those personalities, and then also have children at home or have a wife. Like, there's so many elements of MMA that I feel like could be highlighted besides from the fighting. And I love the fighting aspect of it. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm the first one to sit down and watch two guys or two ladies just go blow for blow. But it's for me, it's always about highlighting to the outside. So, you know, if a guy hasn't really had a whole lot of fights, I really try and focus on something that either A, happened in the fight. So say if they got a really big knockout, they got a really big submission, they're really working their boxing, then I'll highlight that. But I really want to give them that highlight too of the outside of the cage. Because oftentimes, more than not, what was happening outside of the cage goes into what's going on inside the cage. And I know that sounds a little bit confusing to people, but these fighters, they're emotional, man. They got a lot of things tied to them, and I've learned that over the years. And so I feel like I let them talk, man. I let them do their thing, and I feel like that's why I don't know. I feel like that's why I've slowly been able to garner connections with a lot of these guys.
You've made a big name for yourself in a short amount of time. Last year, you were in the booth for A1 Combat 16. That was just this past December. I thought you did an incredible job, and I actually reached out to Tom Anderson, the head promoter, after that fight, and I was just like, get him back in there immediately. Like, he did a fantastic job. And talk about like one of those like oh shit moments where it's like you get an opportunity like that, and when you're like preparing to like do play by play for a fight as opposed to like doing an interview. Like, I can't imagine what went on behind the scenes in order for you to prepare and get ready for that. Can you kind of peel back the curtain for me and just tell me, like, how did you get that opportunity and what went into all your prep work to make sure you were prepared to call a great night of fights, which you absolutely did?
Hey, well, I appreciate it, Tyler. That means definitely a lot. It was very stressful. It was very stressful. I had 559 fights that same night. Before that, so I was definitely had my plate full, and I got approached by Tom a little bit earlier that week, and he had said, "Hey, we're not going to be able to have we're not going to be able to have the commentator out for this event. Um, we should call these fights, man. That'd be a great opportunity for you. I think you do really well." And I was like, I sat and I talked about it with my mom, actually. I remember I like called her and I said, "Hey, I just got this offer to do A1 convention center." She's like, "Dude, you should do it. Like, this is such a big opportunity." And I was already going to do it. But for me, it's just hearing that second confirmation, from someone that's really kind of seen me. And my mom's seen me through my ups, she's seen me through my downs. So it was really cool to be able to kind of get that, like, hey, like, I think, and I knew she knew I was ready. I knew people around me have been telling me, like, hey, like, you should try commentating. You know, um, you should try it out. But it was really, for me, it was just, I didn't want to disrespect anybody in the game. I know so many guys have been commentating for a while and have been putting their foot out there. So for me, it was just, I didn't want anybody to feel like I was taking up on a spot that they had earned, And I feel like I just went out there and I did what I know best. I talk about those fighters at the length that I can and try to give as much context to them outside of the cage that I possibly could. And it was a good show. Is honestly, it's really cool getting to see A1 Combat at the Visalia Convention Center as someone I grew up 20 minutes away in Dinuba. And we didn't really have a whole lot of events coming over here growing up. I mean, we would have the occasional Fury, we'd have the occasional pro, like Tachi show, but we never really had a consistent pro show coming into town. So it's really cool that A1 Combat continuously gets to come into town. And it just felt like a full circle moment for me, man. Especially like how I said, with what I went through with my friend, what I went through going through to get through all here, man. Getting to commentate that event was really cool. But I hope it's not my last opportunity. I've told Tom, I'm like, hey, man, we anytime you need someone, let me know. But TJ and Johnny are also killing it on the commentary team. A1 Combat's been killing it as a whole. So I'm just happy to be a part of the organization as a whole, in all honesty, in any asset I can be. So that's really, it's really been it. Tom Anderson hit me up the week of and said, "Hey, man, let's do it." I said, "Tom, you found yourself the right guy, because you found yourself a wild man." So I went on YouTube, watched all these guys' fights, watched as much as I could with all the 559 fight stuff I had going on. And luckily, a lot of these guys had fought for 559 before. So I just had that kind of background on a lot of these guys. And I was able to, just kind of bounce off a lot of information off coaches, of a lot of people as well. And I got a lot of good feedback from that event. And it was really, really cool to see not only people tuning in to me, but tuning into the Central Valley, into MMA. And that's honestly what I do this for. I don't care about me. Like, I don't care about MLH Media. Like, it's more about getting my brand awareness to where people were like, where the hell is this guy from? Why is he covering MMA? And like how you're talking with me now. And I feel like we're slowly doing that, man. So I really just am grateful for any opportunity that gets thrown my way. And A1 Combat 16 was an amazing opportunity. I can't wait till the next commentary opportunity that comes about, because I feel like it's going to be a fun one.
Well, you're a very talented individual, and I will say that, outside of just me and you, I was talking to other people in this space. We were all tuning in. We were all watching the fights that night, and almost like across the board, we were all like, "He's absolutely crushing it. He's doing a fantastic job." Like, you received like overwhelmingly positive reviews from people from my side of it. We were all really impressed by your body of work, because I'm sure it's one of those things where a lot of people are like, "Hey, man, think you could call a fight?" And then like, "Yeah, man, fuck yeah, I could." And then it's like, "Okay, here's the mic." And you're like, "Oh shit, I actually have to do this." And you walked the walk, man. You went out there and you did it, and you did a phenomenal job. We were all very, very impressed by what it is that you did that night. And we hope, I think I speak for everyone when I say we hope we see you in the booth really soon. Michael, I wanted to ask you a different question, because here's one of the things I think you do a really good job of. I think you do a really good job of drawing out compelling stories from whoever it is that's standing across from you. Like, you get the whole human aspect of the fighter, and you ask them a series of questions kind of beyond the X's and O's of fighting sometimes, and like you're getting into like deep things in a very limited, compressed window of time that you have with these guys. I'm just kind of curious, like, what's your philosophy on doing an interview? Like, how is it that you're so good at like pulling out really engaging, really unique sound bites from these fighters that we don't always hear?
Hey, well, I appreciate that. I guess that's the job of any interviewer, is to really just go in there and you only have so much time with these guys. Sometimes these guys tell you, "Hey, I got 15 minutes in between my break with training and between the lunch." So for me, it's always been about respecting these guys' time. And you can ask any fighter, any media member I've ever spoken to. I've always told them I appreciate your time. And a lot of times they don't understand that, but I really truly mean that. Time is a valuable entity, and for me, it's really valuable that these people are taking the time out of their day to get to speak to me on my platform. So I feel the only respect I can give them is to give them that. You know, what do when I think about an interview, I think what do I want as the viewer to hear? And I want to hear what this guy had to go through, because yeah, it's cool to hear the X's and O's. It's cool to hear about this fight. People really want to hear about is why are they fighting? Why is this guy going in a cage and taking this amount of force? Why is this guy going in this cage and trying to prove to people that he's something? Or why is this girl going in this cage and putting her body on the line when she could easily be doing something else? It's not always a simple answer. And I feel like every fighter needs the opportunity to elaborate on that. And sometimes you got to ask the questions that do it. And honestly, and I just feel like it's like a conversation. And for me, I've always been one. I really appreciate when someone's able to give me an honest, a real honest answer. And I feel like the most honest answer I ever got was from, ironically enough, someone we both interviewed in Cody Vogel's. He told me about his background, with his mom and having to grow up fighting, and he just felt like he's seen his mom with a lot of people, and he was like, I didn't like that, and things like that. Where I told him after, I'm like, I really appreciate you being so open with things like that, because there's so many people out there right now, Tyler, that are dealing with that
Mhm.
got their mom in a bad situation. Maybe they're not training MMA. Maybe they're not doing this. Maybe they don't even like sports. But you know what? They're going to hear that story, and they're going to hear that this guy was able to push through this. And I hope that they can find something within that interview, or within Cody talking, or within me talking, that can help them through that. And at the end of the day, that's what my interviews are for. They're here to either, if it's for the families that want to listen to them, or if it's for the people watching along at home that find something in them. I want people to be able to take something away from them and apply it to their own lives. If that's negative, that's positive, whatever that may be. And so I feel like I approach the interview like a conversation. I really just when I talk to someone outside of the camera, I really want to see, who are you? Like,
Mhm.
who are you as a person? And I feel like sometimes I get those answers in centerfolds, and I can see a person for who they are as a whole picture. And sometimes it takes a little bit more cracking at the nut, but it's always a great time getting to speak to these athletes, and I'm just in a blessed position of where I am. I honestly, the fact that they even want to talk to me is crazy. So
I completely identify with everything that you said. Michael, I'm be curious to get your opinion. What do you believe are the biggest misconceptions about being in the MMA media space? Like, I feel like there are a lot of people from the outside, whether they're fighters, agents, managers, or just fight fans in general. Like, there's kind of a mystery about what it is that we do, and I don't think people always understand or see the full picture. And I'm just kind of curious, like, what do you believe are some of the biggest misconceptions about some of the things that we do from our side of it?
that we get paid a lot. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, no, no. I mean, that's a good one. That's a good one. But that's one of them, that I get paid a lot for this. I don't get paid a lot for this. I do this out of most of my own pocket, which is not. I'm not trying to, like, make you guys feel bad for me or anything. It's just, I feel like oftentimes, and even too, I want to let you guys know with fighters, like, a lot of these fighters that are in amateur MMA, they're not getting paid to do these fights,
Yeah,
and like,
they're paying to fight.
they're paying to fight, and
Yeah.
so they're getting paid maybe by ticket sales, and that's a very small portion of that. I feel like that's another really big misconception of fighting. The checks in general, I feel like a lot of people think when guys are winning before they make that UFC level, that they're making a whole lot of money. And in all reality, I think I spoke to Tom about it. He just said MMA organizations are a lot of money to put on, and there's so many aspects of MMA that I feel like the average fan does just not think about. I mean, they don't think about the lights. They're not thinking about the DJ. They're not thinking about the alcohol, like how much you have to pay for that. There's just so many things that go into an MMA event that I feel separates it from being like any other type of spectator event. And I mean that in truly any capacity. When Dana White said, like, with the Sphere and how, you know, MMA, it's going to put on a show like no other, I truly believe that, because there is no other show like MMA. I really do think that people sometimes have this misconception that, like, it's just, oh, it's just throwing a cage in the middle of the convention center or wherever you're at and having these guys go throw blow for blow at each other. And it's a lot more than that, man. I wish promoters kind of got the love they deserve. I know sometimes they can be a little bit difficult in the sense of, oh, like tickets, or, oh, this is expensive, but it's a lot of work to put on an event, and I feel like oftentimes that doesn't get highlighted enough. And the people involved in the backrooms operation and the streaming and all, there's so many things that help make an MMA show run. I feel like the fans, you don't, when you're watching a show, you're not even looking at it. You know, you don't even see it, and you don't see this aspect of things and this aspect. So, MMA fans, just calm it down a little bit. Let's show a little bit of love to everybody working and to everybody in the space, because I promise you, I would say that this is probably the most passionate group of people working within the sphere. If it's people backstage, if it's people within the media, if it's people that are just wrapping hands, they've been in this game for so long and they have so much love for it that I promise you, you telling them a little comment over Instagram is not going to get them to quit. Like, so just, just stop at it now while you're ahead.
Michael, one of the questions that I get, and it's from like well-meaning people, but I don't think they really like understand how this works. But like something I'll get is like, "Hey, how come John Jones isn't on your show?" Or, "Hey, how come you don't get Charles Oliveira on your show?" And I'm like, "Well, you guys have to understand it doesn't really work that way. Like it has to. There's a lot. It's hard for me to describe without going on a huge rant, but it's just like there's like a lot of like rules and like there's just like an underbelly and like an understanding of just kind of how this whole thing works behind the scenes that most people wouldn't necessarily be aware of. I'm hoping you can kind of like pick it up from here and just kind of like explain what it is that I mean by all that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I feel like a lot of MMA media is opportunity. A lot of people don't understand that, and it's like a, oh man, what's the best comparison for it? It's like a jack of all trades kind of thing where, you got some moments where it's super easy to get into contact with some guys. I mean, there's some fighters where I'm like, wow, it was really easy to get into contact with you. For example, Anthony Hernandez. I mean, I met him at an event. We're really cool. We're real formal. We talk back and forth. He's been someone I've kind of interviewed in the past, so on and so forth. But then there's other guys like how you say, like a John Jones, for example, or a Charles Oliveira, where it's like their management companies or whoever they're involved with to get to speak to you, it's like they got to know who you are. They got to know, like, okay, this guy's been in the game. This guy's been putting in his hours. And even then, you may not get an interview. I mean, these guys aren't even really going on shows like Ariel. They aren't going um, on these larger platforms that, I mean, arguably, I would have I would have no, what do you call, ill will if they were to pick that show or to pick that platform over mine. But the main point I give to them is a lot of fighters just don't want to do media, and that's perfectly okay. I feel like sometimes there's this thing with sports where they think everybody needs to talk. And I feel like Nate Diaz kind of got pushed in that light of, oh, well, you're a fighter, you need to talk. And sometimes it's okay to not put guys in the limelight. Some guys just don't want to be there. And I feel like guys like the Charles Oliveira's of the world, like the who's another big star right now in the UFC. Let's talk like Sean Strickland, guys that like the attention. It's perfectly okay to harness it in and bring it into them. But I feel like a lot of fans don't have that, that kind of, I call it a feel. It's like they don't have that feel of knowing, like, okay, cool, there's these larger components that go into things. There's management companies that oftentimes, if these athletes are big enough, we have to contact them. Like, a lot of these guys managed by a guy like Ali, managed by a guy at Iridium Sports Agency at the higher end. They're not going to be able to contact you right away with hey, like, we can get this interview in at this time, unless you know that guy. and it's all about who you know, and as the old saying goes. So I feel like a lot of MMA fans may think like, oh, it's a small sport, you know, there's not a lot of things going on, but at the same time you also have to put that into your wheelhouse of how many other MMA journalists are contacting John Jones or Charles Oliveira right now for an interview. I guarantee there's probably about 500 journalists, 300,000 podcasters, and how many other people. So I feel like, and you get it, and I feel like a lot of other platforms get it within regional MMA and within, you know, covering more local MMA. And that's why I've always told people, if you're truly a UFC fan, if you're truly someone that loves to watch the sport of fighting, you will go to your local MMA event and enjoy it. And if you don't, then I don't know what to tell you. Like, you just don't like MMA. You like the UFC, which is perfectly fine. There's a, you know, like, I understand that. But I feel like more people need to kind of get involved in their local MMA scene and really see, how much do I like MMA, which is a perfectly okay question to ask. But I feel like a lot of times now that the UFC is becoming more popularized, a lot more people are like becoming UFC fans rather than MMA fans. And I feel slowly we will start to see the contrast. We'll start to see more people that are slowly more into MMA and not so much UFC guys, to where they're like not even watching the UFC. But kind of like how we have with football, with college football, you know, there's people that only watch college football, they don't watch the NFL. I feel like pretty soon we'll see that, and we'll see that kind of rise in regional MMA, but it takes time. And I feel like certainly soon enough we will see that kind of we'll see that flattening in media. Maybe we won't be getting asked every other weekend, where's Charles Oliveira, where's John Jones? Because I have been asked. I get Cheeto Vera. Usually the Cheeto Vera questions always come my way. Where's Cheeto at? Where's Cheeto at? You interview a guy one time and everyone thinks you have his geo tag or his location every single time. I'm like, I don't know where he's at, guys. He's probably somewhere in Costa Mesa training. He's probably eating a steak or enjoying his life, taking a dab, something. I don't know. He's doing something. He's enjoying his life, man. Cheeto Vera's he's got a good thing going for him. So, you know, I feel like that for MMA fans, just having that feel of knowing like, hey, there's other athletes that are in this sport that are putting in a lot of work to get to that UFC level, and let's show them that support. Let's show them that we want them to get to that top level, because I promise you, a lot of these guys will remember your name and will remember your support.
One of the more interesting things about MMA and how it's covered is we have traditional media people, and it's weird because I'm a lot older than you, and I would say you're traditional media, and I am not. I'm a YouTuber, right? So it's like I am more in that content creation kind of media, kind of not sort of thing, whereas you definitely are. Like, you're at the events, you're doing play-by-play work, you got a microphone in front of somebody's face, live at an event. Like, by all accounts, you are traditional media. And now we're seeing like a bunch of like different reactions in terms of like how this sport is covered, right? Like, we have like certain journalistic expectations from people like you that are at these events that I would label traditional media, and then people like me where, and maybe it's kind of a gray area, right, in terms of like how we operate. I feel like there are way more rules for guys like you as opposed to guys like me, and I'm just kind of curious, like, you see a lot of like people chirping about the professionalism in terms of how the sport is covered. We had this crazy chick talk about cowboy branding her at an event not that long ago. We saw a guy catch Derek Lewis's cup, a media guy that was on site at an event, and then he asked Dana White to like sign it at the press conference. And it's drawing like these types of like things that are happening. They kind of like go against the grain of like what traditional media coverage is really kind of like all about. And you have like people like me. It's easy to talk shit because I'm a YouTuber. I'm not at these events, right? It's easy for me to talk shit and shake my fist and be like, you shouldn't be doing that shit. Act like a professional. And then there are other people that are like, Tyler, like, you're old and you probably need to relax a little bit. Like, they're just out there having fun. They're
You
not
don't look a buck over 20,
yeah.
Tyler. Come on, man. Come on. You don't look a buck
but
over 20, my man.
but you see what I'm saying? Like, then there are other people that are just like, bro, they're just out there trying to have fun. Like, you need to relax a little bit. Like, it is what it is, right? Everyone's just out there having fun. Like, don't be such a
Yeah,
hard ass. What's your opinion on that? Like, do you kind of see where I'm saying? And like, do you kind of understand like both sides of the argument in that one?
100%. I'm actually a journalism major in college right now. So I'm in my fourth year over there at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I'm going to graduate with a degree in journalism with a sorry about that, with a like a specification of public relations. But Man, I've actually gotten asked this a couple of times. Like, how do you feel about other media outlets? How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? For me, I think MMA media is a whole different beast than any other media entity, and I think it's because of the sport. And I'll go into this for a bit, but it's hard for me to say that without people going up in arms and being like, "Oh my God, but journalism, ethics, but this, but that." But okay, hear me out. These guys are going in a cage and fighting, and a lot of these guys are really cool with each other after. Sometimes a lot of them got a lot of beef. Sometimes gyms have beef. There's a lot of different aspects that I feel regular everyday fans or regular everyday sports enjoyers don't understand about the realm of fighting compared to maybe covering a sport like football, covering a sport like baseball, where there's so much more of an obvious winner loser aspect. Does that make sense? I
Hmm.
feel like, with the score in football, it's like 38-20. It's like that's a definitive score. There's no, and in UFC, it's like there's the scorecards thing, and there's just so many things that are so
There's a lot more
unsure.
nuance. Yeah.
There's a lot more exactly. There's a lot more nuance. So it makes that space open for these MMA media outlets, for podcasters, for all these things to kind of establish like what is really journalism, what is really podcasting, what's really entertainment. And I feel like the blurred lines, it can get a little confusing for people, but I've always said the real prevail. And I don't mean that in a negative light. I think there's a space for everything, but just like how in NFL, there's space for NFL YouTubers. There's also a very big space for NFL journalists, as we've seen. I mean, Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter, all these guys that have grown huge platforms off of breaking news. And so I think over time, the MMA media space will kind of fill itself out. There will be more podcasters and they'll identify themselves as podcasters, and there'll be more media outlets and they'll identify themselves as journalists. But I feel the biggest thing that MMA media can do to keep itself growing and to keep itself continuously moving in an upward trajectory is getting these journalists in these rooms and continuously getting them to ask those questions that I know the UFC sometimes may not want to answer, but it's what the fans want to hear. And at the end of the day, I feel like if you're an organization like that, you gotta cater to the fans in some sort of senses. So I know sometimes business is business. You got to go ahead and wait on some things, but I think the more journalists that we get in these rooms, the better questions we will get at these press conferences. And at the end of the day, they get trained in this. Like this is something that I've been going to school for quite some time, and I think that the people that are studying within my field definitely have a really good reality of the journalism aspect of things, of asking questions, of being humanitarian towards maybe a little bit more of rougher and tougher situations compared to somebody that just started up a podcast in their room. And that's not an insult to them. It's just there's different levels of learning, there's different levels of understanding, and I feel like there's a space for everybody in the game. It's just all about figuring out what puzzle piece fits where. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like eventually, soon enough, we'll start to kind of see everything. We'll see the podcasters of the world go to a certain sector, and we'll see the more like how you said, traditional media. But I've always looked at myself as more of a traditional media guy myself, just because there isn't really a whole lot of it in MMA media anymore. And I feel like that was something for me to kind of stick out on and be a little bit of a kind of a thumb up in the world, and
Hmm.
showing that there's still a good light. And for me, I've always this has been my dream since I was a little kid, man. My cousin, we used to play basketball in the backyard, and I was never the one making the game-winning shot. I was always the one interviewing her after and talking to her after. So it's always been something in the game plan, man. It's just always been about making sure everything's hitting on the right note, and we've been hitting on the right note as the last couple of years, and I'm thankful for that. But yeah, I think MMA media will slowly start to see itself find its place, but it'll take some time. It's a very nuanced sport. We're still in such a huge growth right now that I think everything's just kind of figuring itself out. It's like the big flurry right now. It's a dust bowl right now of MMA media, and we'll kind of see how things start to filter out over the years. And I'm
And
really excited for it.
Uncle Tyler says there's a time and place for everything. Don't act like an idiot at live events that you're covering. That's my TED talk for the day. There we go.
That's the best piece of advice we could have given him, Tyler, man. To see all these MMA media outlets get drinking at events, doing all this crazy stuff. I'm like,
Time and
Dude, you are
place.
in a professional aspect, man. Let's get things going. Let's get things working, man. But it's not
Yep.
my place. I'm not gonna go ahead and do that, you know. So that's where I said everyone has their own place for it. Everyone has their own kind of puzzle piece that they fit into the thing. I'm gonna fit my puzzle piece in. I'm gonna do what I have to do, um, and I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it in the way I think is right. And if other people have anything to say about that, then I'm more than open to a discussion. I'm more than open to a conversation. But yeah, that's really I gotta say all I gotta say about that, man. I got all love for people in the MMA media game. It's a hard, rough world out there. And at the end of the day, I just got love for everybody in it, man, because they're all covering the same sport I love and enjoy. And I think we're just all in it for the same purpose. So there ain't no ill will towards anyone out there, man. It's all love.
That is a perfect segue into my next question, because what it is, whether you're on my side of it on in the YouTube world or on your side of it, like traditional media, what we do, it's like it's very difficult. Like you have your own unique set of challenges that I don't have to deal with, and then vice versa, right? Like we deal with very unique, difficult things. Like covering the sport is not easy. There's a lot of logistics, there's a lot of homework. Like I could go on, and I'm preaching to the choir here, but what advice would you give to anybody that's looking to get into this whole MMA media space, whether they're looking to just be a YouTuber like me, or whether they want to pursue a more traditional path like you? Like, what advice would you give to somebody who's thinking about getting into all this?
Yeah, 100%. I got lucky. You know, I always tell everyone that. Everyone always like, oh, like, you know, you worked really hard to get into the position you're in. I said, every piece of hard work comes from a little bit of luck. And I 100% believe that. Like, I will never ever say, like, I'm from the ground up. I've done this all on my own. I started like, no, like, I've had people help me along the way. Been very lucky to be in the path that I'm in. But I feel like the biggest piece of advice that I could give to people that are coming up in this game that are really wanting to is develop a unique way of, of getting your content out there. If that's not through interviews, if that's not through a newsletter, if it's, there's so many different ways that you can distribute content nowadays that there's almost no excuse. And so I see these people and they're like, yeah, I want to get my foot wet in the door. I want to do this and this, but I don't know where to start. Start somewhere, man. Like start anywhere and just see where it goes, man. Everyone has their own different niche. Like how you said, you have challenges that I'm pretty sure I have no idea how to entail. And you have challenges, I have challenges on my end that if I gave you them, you would probably be like, what the hell am I doing? And that's perfectly okay. That's perfectly okay for everybody to have their own set of challenges and their own things that they got going on. But I feel like the biggest thing to help yourself grow in this kind of landscape is just to just grind, man, to really just put your nose down and just keep on working. And like I can't say that enough because that's what I've done these past couple of years. Like, I mean, I never asked Tom Anderson for a commentary spot. I never asked anybody for any of the things I've gotten. They've been put in front of me and I took the opportunity and I've capitalized on it. I would like to say I've never ever asked for anything that I've been given. And I look at that as a testament to putting myself not only in the right place in the right time, but also the proof is in the pudding. You can't be denied at a certain point. And I look at it like a fight, when you're in a fight and you're fighting out there and you're third round, you want to put out a performance that no one can deny. If it's not putting that guy away, if it's not making that guy tap out, you want to put on a 10-8 performance, a 10-7 performance, you want to leave no doubt out there. And that's what I do every single time with MMA media. I want people to be like, damn, that guy had the most compelling post-fight interview. Like I really learned a lot from that. Or, oh dang, like that was really cool that he got to talk to this guy after and he learned this. Like how you said, pull certain thing out of guys, like I got some great stuff out of Uriah when I got to talk to him. He's saying like he was like a fish out of water when, like that was some of the things like I get to hear from some of these athletes. It's just really, it adds a lot of insight to my own life, man. Like I really can't say it enough how much I've learned from these guys and how much I've learned from um, these great athletes in the sport. Like just they've taught me so much, and I can't be grateful enough for the position I'm in, man. I can't wait to see where it brings me, and I'm really grateful for your time today, having me on, man. It's an awesome experience. Like really can't believe I'm on Mom's Basement MMA, man. It's like crazy, but yeah, man, it's cool.
You're too kind. Well, before I let you go, I wanted to really quickly get your opinion on some of the biggest fights that are going to be happening this summer. And all I want you to, without qualifying it. You don't have to say why.
Perfect.
I just want you to tell me who's going to win these fights. So, and let's see how well you do at the end of the summer. So, the first fight, Islam versus Dustin. Who wins that one?
Oh man, it's a hard one right off the bat. Heart's going Dustin, but mine's going Islam. So I'm gonna go Islam.
Cannonier versus Imamov.
Cannonier.
Alex Perez versus Tatsuro Taira.
Got to go with the Valley Boy on that one. Alex Perez, 5'9". Let's go.
Whitaker versus Shimaev.
I think the Wolf gets it done. I think Chimaev gets it done. I hate saying that out loud. I don't want Robert Whitaker to lose. I was just like, I'm trying to put that in my head. Okay, let's get past it.
McGregor versus Chandler.
Oh, McGregor Chandler. It's kind of like the Dustin Poirier and Islam. Like, I really, really, in my heart, I want the Mac to go out there, get that first round KO and get it big. You know what? We'll go with the heart pick. I'm going McGregor. I think he gets that one done. I don't know why. For some reason in my heart, feeling McGregor.
All right. Thug Rose versus Macy Barber.
Ooh, that's another really, really good one. I actually may be at that one, but
there we go.
Ooh, man, I really love that matchup too. I mean, give me Thug. I really think Thug Rose will get that one. I think it's gonna be a really close one, but I that's actually, if you guys haven't highlighted that fight, trust me, that is going to be a women's fight of the year, if not one of the top fights of the year in general. Like, I feel like that fight's like so under the radar, it's crazy. Sorry, I just had to take a moment to highlight that, because I low-key almost even forgot about that fight for a moment, that it was going to be over there in Denver, and I was like, man, it's gonna be an absolutely insane summer with some of the fights we got on deck.
And one final one, right? I don't think anyone will be surprised, based if you've been paying attention for the past, almost hour we've been doing this. Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad. You're taking Bilal Muhammad, no doubt.
I gotta go Bilal, man.
So I will ask you to expand a little bit on this one. So Leon Edwards, we've seen him go up and do really well against wrestlers in the past. We saw him, with the exception of the first fight, like, we all knew Kamaru Usman was basically on his way toward winning that fight. But then the rematch, we saw Leon Edwards completely shut him down, and he looked phenomenal in that second fight. Why do you think Bilal does it different? Like, obviously, we know what Bilal wants to do. You must think that Leon Edwards isn't going to have any sort of answers for his takedowns, his pressure, and his wrestling.
He's looked really good in camp from what I've been hearing from a lot of sources that I've been kind of talking to. I've been kind of getting some words that he's been looking really nice in camp. So I really like that. He's been working with Khabib's camp a lot, been working with Islam. Bilal, he's like a Leon 2.0. And I give people this comparison all the time. If you complain about Bilal style, you don't like Leon Edwards. It's okay to admit that. Leon Edwards is not everyone's fighter. He has the head kick Usman knockout. And trust me, I love that. Like, that was such a great storyline. I was rooting for Leon in that fight. I really wanted him to win that fight. But Bilal is just, in that first fight, Leon did have a really good first round. Do not get me wrong. He had a really good first round. He looked really, really good in that first round. Probably the most aggressive he has ever came out in a first round. But I just think Bilal, he's been working a lot. His striking has looked so much better. The way he put away Sean Brady was just, he looked really crisp on the feet in that performance. He's looked crisp on his feet. The Gilbert Burns performance, I think he could have performed a little bit better. But Gilbert Burns is such a hard guy to put away as well. Like, he's one of those guys that he's going to be in that. He's kind of like almost like a Neil Magny-esque, but at that higher level, where he's really just going to be in that cage and he's going to find a way to dog it out. We've seen him do it with Chimaev. We've seen him do it with all these guys over the years. So I don't really take too much on that Gilbert Burns fight. I'd look at more of what Bilal was able to do, and he was able to execute his game plan on Gilbert. He was able to have a lot of success in areas that I feel like Leon was wanting that Gilbert fight for a reason. That's all I'm kind of going to say on that matter. I love Gilbert Burns. And this is, by the way, I don't mean this as any hate towards. This is all analysis. But I just think Bilal's got this one in the bag. I really like what he's been doing in his camp with Khabib and company, and with just who he's been working with in general. I feel like it's like how we've been saying, it's almost hard to deny him at this point. He's just fought everybody that's been in his path, and I really just think he's going to get it done over there. I don't know. Leon could get another, miraculous, but that's how I see him winning the fight. If Leon gets this one done, it's by KO. I don't see him taking a decision over Bilal over 5.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. There you have it. Those are some of the biggest fights that are happening over the course of this summer. And there you go. Michael just told you who he thinks is going to win. So do with that information what you will. Michael, number one, thank you for being a guest on the program. I've had you for a really long time, and we covered a whole lot of stuff today. And I know that you have a lot of people that work with you to help promote your brand and whatnot. So if there are any shout outs, anything that you wanted to plug before I let you go, let's do it, my man.
Yeah, so make sure if you guys are not already following me on all my social platforms, mlhmedia.mma, and then also on YouTube, just MLH Media. But also, I got these shirts, y'all. Most recently, we got the Mexican flag on them. We also got just the regular MLH Media shirts, small through XL. If you need any other size larger than that, please let me know. I just don't like having a lot of the bigger sizes on hand because I always end up having a bunch of like double XLs, triple. I'm pretty sure you get how it is with the shirt distribution. But also wanted to give a huge shout out to my brother. He got big unanimous decision victory this weekend over Chris Gregg, 559 fight to 105. So I wanted to give a huge congratulations to him and to the Dethrone camp over there for all the work they've been doing in with him. And I'm really excited for his MMA career. So he's been someone that's kind of been seeing me as I've gone along this path. So I just really wanted to give a big shout out to him and for all that he's done for me and helping with my MMA career. And I just want to give the big thanks to my family, man. I'm sitting in my mom's house as we speak right now, not in the basement, but I am sitting in her house. And it's it's surreal, man. They've helped me out through a lot. We've been through a lot, and it's honestly, it just feels really good whenever I'm able to be around them at events and whenever they're sitting there. I mean, they go to every single fight that I'm at the 559 fights or at A1. So it's just cool, man. It's cool seeing my family happy, and we've been through a lot together as a whole. So it's just really just awesome seeing them all together at events. And I can't wait to see what the future holds, man. Like, that's really just all I have is like, I can't wait to see what everything else comes in store, because I know that I know it's gonna be fun, man. And make sure you guys are following Mom's Basement MMA. I mean, like, come on, like, this is one of the best platforms on the whole entire YouTube, on all of Instagram, man. So make sure if you guys are following my boy Tyler, you guys are throwing the follow at him. And that's all I gotta say, man. But yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you again for being on the program. Make sure you follow Michael on all the social media channels. I'll have a link for all those in the description for this video. And I look forward to having you back on the program real soon, my friend.
You already know, anytime, my man. And anytime you need anyone over here from the 559 California, you hit me up and I got you, my man. Let's go.